Between 1861 and 1865, the American Civil War raged between the Union States of the North and the Southern Confederacy. At the heart of the conflict was the institution of slavery. The end of the war brought freedom to black slaves in the South. But in the North, a different kind of human bondage had just begun. Italian traffickers, known as padrones, took thousands of children from their homes in Italy and brought them to the United States. The youngsters were put on the streets and forced to play musical instruments, dance, or beg. Every night, they went back to their tenements and gave the day's income to their masters. Those who presented inadequate earnings were severely punished. The young performers suffered terribly at the hands of their keepers. Half of them died from exposure, hunger, or abuse. The boldest and most desperate of these youths fled from their oppressors. Rewards for their capture, like this one, provide fleeting glimpses into the forgotten lives of the little minstrels.
Lost. An Italian boy answering to the name of Francesco Domenico Lobraico was last heard of the 12th of February. His age is 10 years. His ears are pierced. He is short in stature and has chestnut-colored hair and dark eyes, and is rather stout. He plays on the violin.
Dozens of such prisoners made daring escapes from their keepers, and the most resourceful of them gained a hard-earned freedom. This is the story of 3 runaway musicians who not only survived the perils of the streets, but succeeded in forging new lives in America.
For Captain Otto Heinzmann, the assistant superintendent at the Castle Garden Emigrant Depot, Friday, April 16, 1886, began as an ordinary spring day. However, that changed when a young man entered his office and, addressing the captain, said,
"I want to know if you can help me to find out who I am."
The unexpected question surprised the captain, but his visitor appeared sincere, so he asked his name.
"I am called Levi Malone. I know that I was born in Italy and was stolen from there when a child, and I know that the name by which I am called is not my real name. I want to find where I was taken from and if any of my family are still alive in Italy or in this country."
The young man then told the officer his story.
"18 years earlier, 6-year-old Levi and his younger brother were abducted from their home in Italy. They were sold to a padrone who took them to the United States and brought them to his den in the Italian quarter of Lower Manhattan. Amid many whippings, the boys were taught to sing and play violin. Then they were forced to perform on the streets. If they returned without enough money, they were beaten and sent to bed without supper. After 2 years of this torture, Levi escaped from his cruel master, leaving his brother behind. The young fugitive tramped and begged his way out of the city. He feared being caught and sold back into slavery, so he avoided busy roads, and he never stayed long in one place. The boy wandered through the countryside and eventually arrived at a small community in western New York, where he found work on a farm. The years passed, and Levi grew to manhood. Yet, he never forgot his brother. So, he returned to the city, hoping to find him. Sadly, Levi's search was fruitless. But during his time in Manhattan, he met an Italian from the region of Basilicata, who remembered a tale of 2 boys stolen from their family about 18 years earlier. their captor was the infamous Raffaello da Grazia, who was known on both sides of the Atlantic as the King of the Padrones. Although he failed to find his brother, Levi was determined to move forward. Returning home, he filed a certificate of naturalization. In 1890, he married Antoinette Rogers, and soon the couple had a son. Once a frightened runaway, the young man was now a husband, a father, and a proud citizen of the United States.
On the 24th of July, 1867, the steamship Bologna arrived in New York bearing 300 passengers. Among them were 30 Italians, most of whom were boys between the ages of 6 and 9. The adults in the group were not their parents. Instead, they were padrones. Saverio Gallo led the troupe, which included 8-year-old Bernardo Rosselli. For the next 2 years, the boy played the violin and danced in the alleys of Manhattan, under Gallo's orders.
Like many child musicians from Italy, Bernardo Rosselli came from Basilicata. He was born on February the 13th, 1859, in the village of Saponara. A year before his birth, a massive earthquake destroyed the town and killed half of its residents, including his sister. Financial hardship caused by the disaster may have forced the family to give Bernardo to Gallo. After serving Gallo for 2 years, Bernardo ran away. The padrone immediately posted a reward for his return. The boy must have been a very talented musician, because Gallo continued to post bounties for nearly a year. The young performer had eluded his master, but he did not go far. 20 years after he fled, Bernardo was working as a musician for hire, just 3 blocks from Gallo's old tenement. Bernardo and other Italian artists competed to entertain passengers aboard vessels of the Iron Steamboat Company, which conducted excursions to Coney Island. Some of the players, like Bernardo, had worked for padrones not many years earlier. Now, they eagerly accepted contracts to play for balls and parties. Good pay enabled the performers to support families and own fine homes. In 1888, Bernardo married Teresa LaSalvia at St. Anthony's Catholic Church in New York. By 1890, the Rossellis had moved to Los Angeles, where Bernardo continued his musical career, supplementing his income by selling fruit. He continued performing for the next 10 years, but by 1903, he had stopped playing in order to concentrate on his produce business. Bernardo and Teresa eventually had 14 children, and the household grew even larger when Bernardo's parents came to America. Almost 20 years after his painful departure from Italy, Bernardo was reunited with his family.
With 1 funnel, an iron hull, and 3 masts rigged for sails, the cello was typical of the steamships conveying tourists and emigrants across the Atlantic during the 1860s. But the vessel also brought kidnapped children to America. On August the 8th, 1867, the cella came to New York, carrying 14 Italian musicians, 10 of whom were boys. The 4 men accompanying them were padrones who had taken the youngsters from their families. Among the youths was Francesco Nigro. The 9-year-old boy found himself on the streets of a strange city, far from home. Half of the children in his situation did not survive. Yet, Francesco did. He was intelligent and resourceful. But above all, he demonstrated exceptional skill on the violin.
Francesco Nigro was born on the 5th of October, 1857, in Viggiano, a community in Basilicata. Facing an uncertain future, Francesco's parents gave their child to a traveling musician who would teach him to play violin in the United States. For 2 years, Francesco performed for his master. Then, he left. Notified of his disappearance, the boy's distraught parents left their home in Italy and came to New York to search for their young son. In April of 1870, his mother, Raffaella, posted an ad in the New York Herald, offering a $50 reward for his return. 3 anxious months passed with no news. In desperation, Raffaella placed a $100 reward in the National Police Gazette. The story of her search spread quickly across the country. Meanwhile, a report circulated about a roving band of young musicians that was entertaining patrons of New York's beer halls. The leader of the band, a talented violinist who attracted enthusiastic listeners, was Francesco. The boy was reunited with his parents, and the family settled in Lower Manhattan, where Francesco continued to gain recognition as a performer. He joined the street department and eventually became assistant foreman. Yet, he continued to pursue his musical career and was still performing in theaters well into his 60s. The melodic sound of Francesco's violin captivated audiences on the boulevards and in the music halls of New York for more than 50 years.
In the 1860s, Italian traffickers began the widespread exploitation of child musicians on American thoroughfares. These unfortunate youngsters suffered unimaginable abuse. Many of them ran away, only to be recaptured. But against all odds, some of the runaways remained free. Street smarts, tenacity, and luck enabled these children to overcome the tremendous obstacles that threatened their freedom. The hard lessons of urban life had taught the little Italian musicians not only to survive, but to prosper in America.